Hi, everybody. Welcome. I am very, very glad that you can join us today for the latest and greatest edition of the Rocket Pro Performance Session. And today we're talking about the power of partnership. I'm Marshall O'Keefe. I'm your moderator. Very, very excited to be here. So if you've been in this business for any length of time, you have a pretty keen understanding of the way that agents and mortgage pros depend on each other. There can be a dance and there can be a tug of war and everywhere in between. But the good news is when things go well and they start to click, it really helps everybody win. So today, what we're going to do is talk more specifically about what makes those partnerships work in real life. Beneath the surface, having a clear understanding of what really builds connections, really helps to build genuine, consistent relationships. That'll be a theme of the day. And that will drive more business for you, which is a great thing. And of course, smoother closings, which helps everybody, including our shared clients, which we can't forget about that. So we're going to talk practical strategies. We're going to hear about some real stories. Samir may share some lessons learned over the time he's been in this business, so that we can, help folks maybe avoid some of those pitfalls. So again, Samir is here with us today, who is the CEO of One Real Mortgage. He is the lending arm, excuse me, of the Real Brokerage. And as I mentioned, Samir has tons and tons of time in the business, 20 plus years, gives him ultimate credibility. But again, I think the thing that makes him the right guy for today's session is his knack for the human element, the dot connector. He knows everybody. He's a really, really fun guy to be around and has tons and tons of knowledge. So I can't wait to dive in. Samir, thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thanks, Marshall. Thank you to you. Thank you to Rocket Pro. Really looking forward rather to today's session. Hopefully, we give a lot of insights, a lot of nuggets where people can take away immediately and have impact in their business. And a little bit about me. Started off in the lending industry as a loan officer back in 2004. At that time, didn't have the luxury of a lot of technology, a lot of lead resources, if you will. So I had to kind of do it the old-fashioned way. I had to go out and build relationships with people in my sphere of influence, people that I knew, and just start developing those relationships for long term. Along that journey, though, things started happening for me in a really positive light. After the market crash in 2009, I gained partnership in the mortgage company that I joined. We grew from one state to about 20 plus states. We created a real estate platform, a real estate matching platform, a lead generation source for real estate agents. We also had a title company, an insurance company. So what that gave us was a great viewpoint from every vantage point in the transaction to figure out how to overall have a better client experience while leveraging what everyone wants. Everyone wants a real human feel. No one wants to feel
Mm.
like they're speaking to a bot. And so I had the opportunity then to sell our mortgage company to Real Broker. Real has exploded. 5,000 agents 3 years ago to now about 30,000 agents in North America. But within that journey, as being part of the mortgage lending arm for Real, I have the opportunity to meet with a lot of great team leaders, a lot of great real estate agents, and just a lot of great people to tap them for insights on what they're looking for in their lending partner. And so I'm excited to dive in, Marshall, today. I think it's going to be a great session. Let's go.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think you're spot on, and I'm excited to jump into it. So let's talk about some outcomes. We'll just talk about what we expect to get out of today's session, and this is important to try to foreshadow the rest of our time together. So, number one, we're going to recognize the value of agent partnerships. Number two, we're going to identify qualities that agents value most in a partnership. Samir just alluded to that. Number three, we're going to demonstrate strategies to connect with agents, real strategies, real things that you can do that go beyond the surface. And then number four, last but not least, is to develop a 30-day action plan to secure new agents. Speaking of that, I do want to foreshadow there will be some action items for you to take away today. I'm going to put that into folks' ears right now. We'll talk about them as they come up, but know that we're going to have you leaving here with some real things that you can use right away. So why don't we jump in here? Let's set the purpose. Samir, tell me, we talk about this a lot. The session's not about cold calls and donuts. It's about real partnerships. We keep
Yep.
saying the word relationship over and over again. And before we get into the nitty gritty, I think maybe it makes sense to talk a little bit about what that means in real life. We say
Yeah.
that word, we maybe just kind of glaze past it like it's an automatic thing that everybody knows exactly what to do and how to do. But maybe we'll start by maybe getting a little deeper on what that really means so that we can level set.
Absolutely. And look, I think relationship is a word that gets thrown around a lot, and it can be misinterpreted, misunderstood by everyone, quite honestly. And I think relationships honestly are different based on you, like what you're expecting. And so a lot of times, we know that real estate is a relationship driven business, whether you're trying to create a relationship with a client, real estate agent, referral partners, whatever it could be. And, we all know inherently that when loan officers and real estate agents align, great things happen, right? You have smoother transactions, stronger client experience, really consistent pipelines of clients that you're helping those agents. But if we dive a little deeper to what relationship means, I'll give you my vantage point and my thoughts. And really, when I think of relationship, what I think of. And to me, it's thinking about my first date. Hopefully, it was a good one. Maybe it's thinking about your current relationship with your spouse and how you first met, right? Or your partner. And it's really diving into this mindset, if you will, of attraction. And when I say attraction, I think there's something to be said about the difference between chasing and attraction. And look, we attract a lot of loan officers, for example, to One Real Mortgage. We don't recruit them. What's the difference? The
Hmm.
difference, quite honestly, is when you're attracting someone, you are looking to help the other person, not yourself first, right? Rocket has a great ism, Marshall: numbers and money follow, they don't lead. This is the epitome of that. Because if you start focusing on the other person, how you can help the other person grow, how you can help the other person just become better at whatever it is they're doing, the relationship starts to take a different turn. People, I believe, understand when you are speaking to them, and we're going to dive into some examples here. But when you're speaking to someone, people pretty quickly understand that whether or not you're pitching or selling them something,
Mhm.
or if you genuinely care about them. And if you genuinely care about their well being and their success, that inherently will have an impact on us. Right. So that's what I always think about. And now, if we dive a little bit deeper into the real estate partnerships, right, this is a partnership. This is not a, hey, tit for tat, I'm going to help you with something, please help me. In a relationship, you have to give a lot more than you take. And in order to get success long term, sustainable success, not just a one and done, you need to have that mindset of attraction versus chasing. And we all know this, but sometimes we forget. Real estate agents don't want to know what the rate is. I mean, maybe they want to know at a high level, but they don't care about a rate sheet. They want a partner that's going to help them grow. And that's what I've found over the years that's really helped me, along with our, many of our team and people that I speak to. When you change your mindset to that, that's really what changes the dynamic of the relationship. And really just understanding that partnerships create influence, they
Hmm.
create stability, they create longevity. Even in those crazy markets like we saw a few years back when things were like looking like they were going to be over again. But that's what it really starts with to me, is like, how do you think of attraction? And when you do that, great things start to happen.
I think you said a couple of really interesting things right there. When you talk about giving without the expectation to get, at least right away, that's an important level set for folks. I think when we talk about caring and connecting and asking questions to understand how you can help somebody and what their needs truly are, that actually may be a little bit of a shift from the way that most people by default might think about approaching these relationships. They think, okay, well, I've got to talk about how great my product is or how great my rates are, or like, transactional things that, albeit important, are not going to be what really truly starts this thing. Because again, we're talking about a powerful foundation here. And again, we're going to talk tactics, we're going to talk things like that as we go. But none of this makes any difference unless there's a true quality relationship built up front. And I think that's maybe one of the first of a series of golden nuggets that we're going to drop along the way today, is
Yeah.
that to start with, it's got to really be intentional around who are you, how can I help you, and what genuine value can I bring to your business before I start telling you all the things I can do for you.
Absolutely. Think about, when someone has gone on their first date, if you sit there in front of the person you were dating across the table and you just start divulging all of this information and talking about how great you are, you're likely not going to have a second date, right? And I think, you talked about it earlier, Marshall, consistency and patience is going to be a fundamental thing that we talk about throughout this class, this training class. But that's really another piece. Like, it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight, but it starts
Yeah.
here, right? I always believe everything starts here. And if you think of attraction, and if you think of how do I attract the person to me, it's really putting them in front of you, and
Yep.
then everything starts to follow that piece. But, you
I,
know, yep. So one of the things that, I want to talk about now is, we have I have a 4-step process. And step one is maybe what others may not think about. Everybody wants to dive in and get the deal immediately and just start calling agents and all of these things. But like any relationship, you need to start with a plan. You need to start with a foundation and a base. And I believe it's really important to know who you serve, but more importantly, what are your strengths, right? So knowing your avatar is great, but before you get into the avatar piece of it, it's really important knowing what you're good at and really
mhm,
being honest with yourself. You can fake it till you make it, but we all know that authenticity is key. Eventually people catch on, and you don't want to create a relationship where you are faking it the entire way, because
yeah,
quite honestly, forget about, how bad the relationship will end up. You're not going to enjoy it, nor will the other person. Everyone can see through everyone. So step one, knowing your avatar and your strengths. But I'm going to start with the strengths first, Marshall. What is your superpower, right? Are you a strategic problem solver? Are you high communication and like have a crazy emotional intelligence leadership style? Are you data driven and really know your process and like a process expert? I think of when I think of that, Marshall, I think of like flow charts and someone like, dissecting into an actual process to find friction points. All of those are great strengths to have. But then you need to understand, from knowing what your strengths are, who is your ideal avatar? Who would you enjoy working with? And that can be a variety of different people. For example, you can have a real estate agent that's a connector, high energy, relationship driven, a referral machine. You can have an operator, someone who is very systems oriented,
mhm,
organized, values reliability. You can have a rising star, an agent who is just getting into the game and maybe wants to lean and work with someone like yourself to help them grow their book of business. There's no right or wrong. It's just about being honest with yourself of really what you want. So when you do that, when you dive into yourself, when you dive into who your ideal avatar is, now what you're doing is you're aligning your strengths with their needs. And like any relationship, sometimes opposites attract. So
mm,
because if you're high energy doesn't mean that you necessarily need to be paired with someone who's high energy. Maybe you want to, and you're going to learn over time that maybe your best skill set is to deal with someone who's process driven, or vice versa. If you're process driven, deal with someone who's high energy and maybe unorganized, where you can really add value to their business and help them grow, because that's the goal. So it's really important to do that, because when you do that, you start to really think in some peace and quiet, not running around like crazy and being on the phone, but in some peace and quiet, you really start to figure out who you're going after. And I think we know there's millions of real estate agents out there. There's great ones, and you're not going to be able to touch every agent. You have to go with a select group. You don't need 100 agents.
mhm,
You could have a great business with 5 to 10 maybe and
yep,
continue to grow from there. But you want to give quality. You don't want quantity. And so, you know, one of the things that I tell everyone is, here's how you start. Because everyone said, Samir, this sounds great. Where do I begin? Like, how do I even start to figure that out? Step one is you need to create an avatar worksheet, an avatar agent worksheet. Who are they? What potential struggles do agents have? What are some things that you can help them with? Again, this is not about you, this is about them.
yep,
And where can you add value? But then from there, it's time to start researching. You can't just pick up a random agent and hope that it's going to work, right? You
yeah,
need to research those agents. And nowadays in 2025, it's not difficult. You can find people's production, right? You can figure out what states or locations that they're serving, what types of homes that they're working on for clients. You can find out what their professional, history has been.
yeah.
You can find out personally what they're about through social media. You can find all these out. This is the research part. Start digging into 3 agents a week and just start there. You don't have to go crazy and start plowing through. Now, if you can do more, by all means, do it. But in the
Yeah,
research part, you have to, like, once you know your strengths, once you know your avatar, now you start researching what agents that, may fit your mold of what you're looking for.
I love it. Talk about beneath the surface. That's like real stuff that we can really use. And by the way, We talked before about the gray and the beard. You just hit us with a Paul Abdul reference of opposites attract. So
Opposites
that's,
attract.
that's
Yep.
aging us as well. I just wanted to point that out. So, hey, one thing I'm thinking about as you're talking, a couple things actually, which is all great stuff. The authenticity piece, like understanding who is your ideal agent and who you're going to connect with the best is super, super important. But I think I want to just drill down on the first step there, at least the way I heard it as you explained it, was an honest assessment of yourself, who I am, what I'm good at, and maybe not just what I'm good at, but what am I willing to do today
Yep.
and in the future with consistency? Because that's going to be what ultimately proves my value is not just what I say, or not just what I, put on a piece of paper saying this is the value that I can add to you, but ask yourself and be genuine. What am I willing to do tomorrow, the next day, the next week, the next month, and potentially years from now to not only create the relationship the right way up front, but to maintain it over time? And speaking of over time, one thing I want you to touch on real fast is this idea of evolving. So I was listening to you and I'm thinking, okay, if I'm in this business and I've not had experience pursuing a real estate agent in this way, the skill set that I have today is minimal, right? But
Yep.
I'm going to do it once and then I'm going to do it twice. And then over time, not only am I going to get better at the things I started with, but I'm going to learn new stuff, right? So like as I think about my own authentic view of myself and the type of agent that I'm looking to attract, it's okay, and I want you to comment on this, that the picture of what that looks like evolves as time goes on, and you become better and more confident in the things that you provide and how you convey that value to the agent partner.
Yep. And look, I think there's no you're never going to be perfect. Number one, that's what I
Right.
always believe, and you're always, to your point, going to evolve. So in the process of evolution, you have to remember that even if you've been in the game for 20 years, a year from now, you're going to be better at the conversation you had the year prior, right? That's going to be an ongoing thing that happens. You're never going to nail it, but authenticity, like I mentioned before, is key. It's vital because most people, especially real estate agents, they want to work with someone that they know, like, and trust, just like
Mm.
clients. Same thing. But you have to be authentic. And, regardless of the fact, even if you're just starting off as a loan officer in this industry and you may not have enough reps under your belt or know enough of what to say or do, I tell everyone that there's no better way than to just practice. Practice with your friends, practice with your significant other, practice with your teenage kids if you have any, because they'll give you really honest feedback that you may not like. But
Yikes.
practice, right? Practice, 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 because
Yeah,
it's never going to be perfect. And if you're authentic and you have the right intentions in mind, I guarantee you, people will see that and they'll give you an opportunity potentially as long as you're adding value to their growth.
I love it. So we're going to transition into step two here, but and one of the things I want to talk about as we go is I think about like in practical application when we're meeting real estate agents in my head. I mean, this doesn't cover everything, but the vast majority of these interactions are going to happen one of two ways. It's either going to be an organic interaction, like you meet somebody at a networking event or you're at a trade show, or that can, take a lot of different shapes and sizes on that side, or it's intentional, right? Like when you talk about researching people, it's 2025, the data is there. It just depends on, where you're looking and how hard you're trying to get it. But you can seek folks out as well. So that's what I would consider more of an intentional reach out. I think
Yep.
maybe a couple of things we can touch on as we start to talk about the initiating and creating conversation, which is a big piece of this. Like that, in my mind, is a literal step one, or this is step two, but like in the actual doing it.
Yep.
Some questions or some things that we can maybe provide as far as best practices or tips to say, like, okay, cool. How do I do that? I'm going to start with one of my favorite questions that I'm going to let you launch into what your ideas are. But one of the things I always ask folks, and I love when people ask me, is very, very simple, is how can I help? Right? That's a simple question. The idea of how can I help you? And if I'm asked that question, I generally going to answer it either A, I already have a very clear idea in my head of the things I need help with or the gaps in my business that I wish somebody else could help me fill. And I'm going to tell you what that is, which is, what better value are you ever going to get when you have, okay, this is the roadmap to success for this relationship. He just told me what he needs and how he needs it. Or two, if I don't know the answer to that question yet, I'm going to think about it. Which at the end of the day, if I've got maybe a few minutes to really process the right way to respond to that question, again, the same thing happens. I've now provided the roadmap to how you're going to add value to my business. And the propensity of you and I working together is now much, much higher
Yep.
because you're not blindfolded fire and darts. You've asked the right questions, or question in this case, to really diagnose exactly what it is that I need. And now it's up to you to figure out how to deliver it.
Yep. And look, I believe that there's no, hold on one second here. I here's the way I look at the tactical side. So we talked about, Marshall, we talked about step one, right? Knowing you, knowing your avatar, and how do you just start researching, right? That's like kind of behind the scenes. But to your point now, okay, we're going to start calling real
Yeah.
estate professionals, real estate agents.
Now it gets
Crap.
scary.
Now we're like a little bit closer to like, all right, now we're like really into the weeds of like,
Yeah.
now we need to provide action. And so one of the things I tell everyone is remember, your agents, and we call them here at One Real Mortgage, our agent partners. They're your partners. They're not your prospects. Think of them as your business partner, potential business partner. How would you address that call? And look, starting off in the space back in 2004, I remember sitting around listening to all these loan officers calling real estate agents, right? They would pick up the phone and just call, and I'm just observing. And time after time after time again, they get nowhere with these agents. You know why? This is how typically they would start. Hey, I'm Samir. I'm from XYZ Mortgage Company. I want to tell you a little bit about our company. We have great rates. We have great technology. Oh, by the way, I answer the phone on the, and I'm paraphrasing here, I answer the phone on the weekends and the evenings. I'm very accessible. I'll go out of my way. I'll meet anywhere you want. Oh, so how can we work together? Or maybe they'll say something like, I'd like to hear more about you. Now, that's the opposite of everything we've been saying so far,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have to let them speak. So, what I started finding, I started trying this out. Again, I dive in, I'm a little bit more, I think deeper on the relationship side, as you mentioned earlier. I said, well, if I'm going to do that and they're failing, I shouldn't do the same thing. Because again, the other problem we find in our industry is everyone has this master script and they throw it at new loan officers. Here you go. And tell them how great we are. No one cares, quite honestly, right?
Yeah.
Because here's the problem. Every real estate agent is getting bombarded every single day by other loan officers at other mortgage companies, basically saying the same things.
Mm.
We have great technology. Our systems give you transparency. We'll answer on the weekends and the evenings. I have great rates. I have great products. Well,
Yeah.
it's 2025, guys.
Those are
If you
minimum
don't have that,
expectations.
you probably shouldn't be in the business. That's the
Yep.
way I look at it. So now let's change it up and give them something where they'll want to talk to us. And I tell everyone this is like having a hook, right? When you have a hook in something, it catches your eye, and now you start reading more and more. So think of your hook similar, even in social media, people use this. Your hook is to get people to start listening to you. However, to what you said earlier, it's what we say. It's honestly also how we say it. And again, the most successful relationships I've seen start with giving, not receiving. So
Mm-hmm.
therefore, what I started doing was I would pick up the phone, I would let them know that I've done some research on them, just so they know that I actually care about them. Maybe pick up something personal, something that I can connect with, right? And then say, hey, I've had helped a lot of agents, over the years with something that I call a strategy session. And this session is about you. I want to hear what your pain points are, what your goals are, where you want to be in a year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, maybe even 10 years. I want to hear all of it because I've been able to help a lot of agents help them get to their goals quicker just by working with me. But I want you to go first, and then you let them go. And you
Yeah.
shut your mic off, or you mute your phone, or if you're in person, you shut your mouth and you're writing. You're taking notes the entire time on everything that they're saying. Because what you're going to find is there's going to be a bunch of nuggets
Yep.
in everything what they're saying. Because think about this, most agents don't have the opportunity to unload when an LO calls because they're just getting bombarded. And then they want to hang up the phone because they don't want to hear the same crap again, right?
Yeah.
You're giving them an opportunity to speak and unload. And
Yeah.
again, this is never 100% certainty, right? This is never foolproof 100%. But what I found more times than not, you're going to be able to take that information and then say, hey, well, you know what? You mentioned this. Here's something that we found with other agents where we can help them with pre-approval strategies, for example. Hey, here's an open house that maybe we can help promote your listing if they have a listing, for example, because some do both. Hey, here's some content or some stuff that I can give you so you can post it to help maybe attract more agents or more
Love
clients to
that.
yourself.
Yeah.
Again, giving value back to them to figure out what they need. And every agent you're going to speak to is going to have something different, but most of it will be having like similar themes, right? Typically more clients, which leads to better marketing. How do I help you with marketing? Hey, why don't we do this? Whatever it may be. But now when you start doing that, and I always believe in, and one of my good buddies, Sharon Srivastava, I don't know if you follow him, Marshall. He's a real estate mogul. He's a real estate icon, right? He always says conversion happens in conversation. So the more conversations you have, the more meaningful, valuable conversations you have where you're letting them speak, the higher likelihood of conversion to end up working with them. So those are some of the things that I think about that, again, you have to build it on value. You have
Hmm.
to build on value of what I can do to help you grow your business. If you talk about yourself, and I say the same thing to our loan officers, Marshall, in the first 5 to 7 minutes of a call with a client, if you speak about mortgage, rates, products, jargon, you're going to fail.
Hmm.
Ultimately, you have to connect with that human and that person to understand what their goals are and how you can help them get to their goals. That's the job. That's our job. Our job is to be the vehicle that can help someone achieve their goals in X period of time that they're looking for.
I think it's really, really great. And I think, you're saying some great stuff. And the thing that I will tell you, I maybe jumped ahead a little bit in my brain, but the thing I keep going to is when we're doing all these things, that's great. And that's the right way to, as step two says in front of us here, to initiate those conversations built on value. I think we all know this, but the consistency and repeating this and continuing to add value over time is really what brings these things over the finish line, or it's not even a
100%.
finish line. It's really more
Yeah.
about like how do you create something sustainable that is not just an individual transaction, or like really something that stretches out over time. Because again, the idea is to get the first one, no doubt about it, but that's really where things should start. That shouldn't feel like we just accomplished something, or the journey is over. This is a destination that's ongoing. So continuing to create that value over time has got to be something that we're thinking about all the time as well.
Always. And I think, one thing that people don't realize sometimes is that that one conversation, you're not going to get the deal or
Yeah,
get the referral of what you're looking for. And we if you do, that's great. That's amazing. That means you probably did a really good job.
yeah.
But
Well, you
to your
got
point,
lucky.
yeah, or got lucky. Consistency and patience is key here.
Yeah,
And I say this a lot. One authentic, valuable conversation is worth a lot more than hundreds of follow-ups,
yeah.
right? And
Okay.
one of the things that I talk about is you have that first call, right? So we talked about. I like recapping. So you figured out your strengths. You built your avatar. You have your little like cheat sheet of few agents that you want to connect with. Now you're having the conversations, but don't think that that conversation is going to lead to a deal immediately, because it's not in most cases. So
Yeah.
you have to be prepared to understand that and manage your expectations. But what else do you have to do? You have to follow up with that agent. And there's nothing more that drives me crazy than someone, even if it's a mortgage loan officer calling an agent or some salesperson calling me, hey, checking in and following up. I drives me nuts. And to me, what should a check-in be? What should a follow-up be? You're giving value, right? So, for example, one of the things that I used to practice was every Friday, I would deliver something of value to that agent, right? Whether it's a market update, whether it's a cool little hack that we found, whether it's a product that just came on the scene or something, but you want to go in with something. You don't want to go in. It's like my parents used to tell me, Marshall, when you enter someone's house, don't go empty-handed, right?
Hmm.
You don't want to go empty-handed. When you say follow up or checking in, that doesn't give any value. And in
Done.
fact, it drives people crazy.
Yeah.
Like no one wants to hear a follow up or checking in.
Yeah, I think you
You,
know what I want to I want to really emphasize this point, because I have a feeling that a lot of the folks listening right now are, if they are honest with themselves, and by the way, I'm in that group, are guilty of making phone calls that start with, "Hey, I'm just checking in," because
yeah,
that's you're spot on when you say that. I think about, like, if I call Samir, a busy guy. It's got a lot going on, lots of responsibilities, both inside and outside of the office. And by the way, if we're reaching out to real estate agents, we want the productive ones, right? We want the ones that are generating business and are busy. So
Yeah.
therefore, these are people that don't have tons of free time. If I call Samir multiple times and each time I call him, I have nothing of value to add to that conversation, given his schedule and the amount of time he has to dedicate to this phone call, he's going to be conditioned to less likely to pick up the phone the next time I call. Conversely, if when I reach out to him, I've got something quick, something nugget, something that's going to be of value to his business, and I give it to him for free, and it's just building the relationship over time, 2, 3, 4 weeks down the road, when I call Samir, he's going to look at his phone and say, I'm going to take this because the last couple times I did, it was a valuable thing that I did for 30 or 45 seconds, as opposed to, hey, just checking in. Like, that does nothing. And I just wanted to really emphasize that point
Yep.
because I'm challenging the folks on this call. And that takes work, by the way. Like, it's easy to make a bunch of phone calls to feel good about yourself and say, hey, I made 100 follow-ups today. Like, that feels good for a second. But if you ask yourself, what'd you really accomplish? To your previous point about the real quality over quantity, as opposed to focusing on checking 100 off your list, check off 10 high quality ones that took you some time to research and prep and to prepare something of value. Far more worthwhile and far more better for your time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And look, agents are watching, right? They're going to see how consistent
Yeah,
you are. And then if they see how consistent you are, like, all right, this person is probably someone that I like to work with. So
love
that's an important person. We're going to jump to the next one because now you've figured out your strengths, you've built your avatar, you've had some great conversation. Now the fun stuff begins because hopefully through all of this, you've earned the agent's trust. But you now have to earn it again or earn it more because just because they send you a referral or a client doesn't mean that the game's over. It's actually just beginning. And so this is where it's extremely important for step 3 to build systems for partnership and transparency. I speak to a lot of agents all the time, and they have the same pain points. We don't know what's going on. We don't have visibility. I had certain expectations, but they weren't met. Therefore, they get upset, right? So now you have a client. Now you're excited. You're so happy. But hold on, stop yourself for a second and have a discussion with your agent. And hopefully maybe you've had that before. Have a discussion about different things, mainly around expectations. Mr. or Mrs. Agent, what is your preferred form of communication? Do you like phone? Do you like text? Do you like email? How often do you want to get updates? What time of day works better for you? How should I communicate what's happening? Do you want me to include you with your client or not include you with the client? All of those tactical things, if you will, almost like the heart of what we do from a day-to-day transactional perspective, because that also, not only do you set the right expectations, but you make the agent understand that you care about this relationship. It's not just a one and done. I want to know what you prefer. I want to know how you would like to be contacted. I want to know what information are you looking for, right? Obviously, we know that sometimes things go off the rails. I don't need to call you every single day unless you want me to, which I will if they want me to, or connect with
Yep.
you some way. But most of the time, it's typically a 1 week catch up or a text, even just to say, hey, everything's going great. Here's the latest updates, whatever it may be. And the other piece is we don't want to forget about the client, right? In this journey, we're helping our client. So, what a client experience, even though we're getting deals from our agents, what client experience are the clients and your agent looking for? And most clients don't want to feel like they're part of a disjointed transaction. If you look today, and that's one of the benefits we have at Real, and I know everyone doesn't have this, but we're all interconnected, right? Mortgage, title, real estate, whatever it may be. And so here, though, I understand that most people don't have that. So then you have to almost create that,
Yeah.
create that patchwork, if you will, create the connectivity to make sure that the client and everyone involved feels like that they're part of one unified team. Like that's extremely important. And one of the things that I use, Marshall, is a framework that I built out. I'm not going to dive into it heavy here, but I teach this to a lot of people as well. And I called it core. Core is something that I thought about back in 2019 of like how I was able to be so successful and manage personal and professional life and still have my brain not explode at times. It was a
Yeah.
few simple things. And it's not about what you do, but it's about how you do it. So here are the 4 elements. And I tell
Everybody
this to
probably
everyone.
write this down. Well, yeah, maybe grab
Yeah,
a
I
pen.
hope everyone writes, yeah, write this
Yeah.
down for sure. And if you ever want to dive in more, I'll be more than happy to talk to you about it. But here's a high level. It's called core. Core, the first one is C, communication. And a lot of people say, oh yeah, you got to communicate. No, it's not about you communicating. It's about how you communicate. So if you think about this, building your systems, what form of communication works well, right? Everyone has different preferences, and you got to be respectful of their preferences. The O is organization. What systems do you have in place today that gives updates, that gives visibility, that adheres to like certain shifts in the market or shifts in like, the actual loan? Like, what is your system, right? And I tell everyone system can be different. It
Hmm.
doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be one specific system that works for everyone. But again, you talk to your agent and figure out like, hey, this is how we operate. Does this work for you? R is responding with urgency. This by far is the number one issue that agents have. They don't hear in time from their loan officer partners. They don't hear of anything that's going south. They don't get feedback right away. They don't hear, they don't hear from them on, quite honestly, anything in a timeful manner. So again, you got to set the expectations though and say, hey, typically here's how I operate, or hey, this is what I normally do. What does this work for you? And talk about how you're going to respond. It's crazy to be in 2025 with the technology that everyone has that we can't respond quickly. Typically, if I was on a call with someone and someone called me, I would shoot them a quick text. Hey, I'm on a call. I'll hit you back, and I'll make sure I hit them back. But no one wants to feel like they're in a black hole. And the
Hmm.
last piece, E, is expectations. The E in expectations is really what we talk about in everything. Set the expectations. If you have a client that needs to close in a week, you got to be upfront and say, hey, we're going to try our best, but the likelihood of us doing it are very slim. So you need other things to get set up for you. Maybe you need to stay with your family, rent a hotel room, whatever it may be. But you need to set the expectations with your agents, with your clients, with everybody. So I use that framework for everything I do: communication, organization, responding with urgency, and setting the right expectations. And the last piece I'll leave you with here is something that's worked wonders: an agent partnership playbook. And again, you can have a white label version, if you will, of this. It's more of a process. Think of a roadmap of what happens when at day 2, day 5, day 20, whatever it may be, to have everything built out where you can give that to them. People love something visible. Even though we're in a technological world, we always like something visible that we can see and understand. Now, hopefully your systems will update, but when you first meet with these agents, say, hey, this is my system, this is my flow, this is how we operate. Does this work for you? And within that, you'll start to kind of be collaborative with your agents on what the flow needs to look like for that specific agent. Ultimately, we're here to serve, right? We're here to serve our clients and our agents. So we have to be flexible to be able to give, feedback. We have to be able to give the structure in which we work, but we have to be flexible to be like, hey, I understand if it doesn't work for you. However, how do we make it work?
Hmm. I love it. It's so simple too. I think that's the thing that like what you're saying is all just very, very good stuff. But it also doesn't strike me as anything that's like over the top complicated, right? Like the idea of just asking the question up front, how do you want me to communicate? When do you want me to communicate? And what milestones are important for you? Like, how easy is that, right? And like, how much of the problems that sometimes exist, not that we want to focus on the negatives, but the reality is sometimes there's roadblocks. And if we had a clear expectation on the cadence of communication right up front from the beginning, and I, as the LO, understand the agent wants to know this, this, and this on this, and this days, and this is the way they want to know: email, text, whatever. The example I can think of all the time, which is like, I can't believe I keep hearing this, is like, why is it that the agent's the last to know something? I hear that
Yep,
all the time. It's
all the
like,
time.
there's something that comes up, it's an appraisal issue, or I mean, there could be a million things. The point is, when we let the client know sometimes before the agent and they feel caught off guard and the client's calling them and saying, hey, here's what I found out, they're unprepared to answer the question. It threatens their credibility, and talk about a way to frustrate somebody quickly. That's so easy to avoid if we just have this conversation up front. So as great as all
Yep.
these things are, I just want to really highlight the fact that this does not require some, this isn't rocket science, right? No pun intended.
No,
It's
no.
very easy to
Yep.
do. Just ask the questions up front. I think it's
Yep.
awesome.
So now we've gone through 3 vital steps, right? Things that we can take away. We've given action items. The agent partner playbook is something I think is extremely important. So now we're feeling good, right? We're doing really well. We're working with our partners. We got a couple deals. And this is another misstep that I've seen from a lot of mortgage professionals. We almost have amnesia and we forgot of how we got there. And
Mm,
like many people do in relationships, we have to constantly remind ourselves that this is a partnership, this is a relationship. The relationship starts after the first closing, not before, right? So we have to make sure that we're constantly, and if we can jump to the next slide here to step 4, we need to innovate and add continued value. It doesn't stop after we got our first or second or third, client referral from these real estate agent professionals that we're working with. And there's many things that we can do here. Number one, when we do this, it keeps showing that we're invested in your business. We're helping you build your business. We're helping support your business. Some of the things that we do is we offer lead nurturing opportunities for our agents that we work with to nurture their leads, or if they're pre-approvals or whatever, anything we can do to add value, right? Co-branded content's another great one that we find really, really educational, insightful. And at the end of the day, we're all about educating through marketing. So how else can we show the world that we are working together and we are your trusted partners to the clients, right? There's no better way than seeing a real estate agent and a loan officer, for example, on a social media video, educating consumers on something about mortgage or real estate or both. And then just having joint feedback sessions with the agent, right? Having a weekly one-on-one. I tell a lot of our team at One Real Mortgage, when you have a relationship built with an agent, you should still be meeting with them once a week, or worst case, once every 2 weeks. And it could
mm,
be 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. You can talk about loans and process, but more importantly, hey, this is what I'm seeing out there in the industry. This is what I'm seeing out there in the mortgage and real estate space. Hey, here's some cool things that we've seen work for other partners. You should try this. Or hey, what are you struggling with right now? What can I help you with? Again, building that relationship and helping them improve, which helps us improve. Those are the things that I tell people. They're not, again, this is a business. It's a partnership. It doesn't just end
mm.
unless
Yeah.
something vitally wrong happens and maybe you're just not the right fit anymore for each other. However, if you continue to add value, if they're hopefully adding some value to you as well, right, through different things that they're doing, you guys are really just working like a team. And that's the goal here, is to how do you create a team environment? That's what's going to really, really prosper. Um, you know, One of the things here that we talk about with our team is the goal isn't to be your lender on the deal, right? I think everyone goes in with this mindset, I'm going to go call a bunch of real estate agents and hopefully get a lot of deals. That's not the goal. If you have that mentality, you're going to fail. Your mentality needs to be, the goal is not to be the lender, but to be their partner in their business. And if
So
you
go
have that
beyond one.
mentality, all things will work out fine.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think that's great. So to go beyond one, be the one that's there for all of them. Earn the opportunity forever, so you don't have to ask for the one anymore. If you do
Yep.
the right things, you're no longer asking. You're just the person that they call. So I think this is really great, and I want to spend a second on this. Is the idea that all the things that we did to build up to that first opportunity to work together are super, super important. Once that first closing happens, that's when you really got to continue and buckle down on the innovation and continuing to add value, as the slide says in front of us. It's about
Yep.
continuing to do those things, right? And also, I just want to say this is that I bet you there's folks on this phone call right now or this video that are thinking to themselves, you know what? I'm really busy. I don't know that I'm going to be able to find the time to do all the things that you're talking about with all these different people. Like that goes back to the one thing we talked about before, is you got to be authentic and real with yourself on what am I willing to do consistently, and do I understand the fruits of my labor if I commit to the following things? And
Yep.
this was also said, you don't need 100 agents. You need like 5 or 6, right? Like
100%.
shallow and narrow, or wide and shallow doesn't work, right? Pick a lane,
Yep.
pick your person, and keep that lane relatively narrow, but go super, super deep, and invest in the relationship so that over time, again, you're no longer having to pick up the phone and say, hey, who do you got for me? Anytime your agent partners have anybody that needs to speak with a lender, they're just automatically calling you because of the investment and the value that you've driven up until that point. So there
Yep.
is there is a ramp up period. Consistency and patience is key, as we've said 100 times. But if you commit to it and you can really, really put in the time and the effort and the creativity and the follow-up, all of it, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And yes, you're still going to have to continue to innovate. You're still going to have to continue to add value, but it will get to a point when it starts to hum, right? Everybody knows what that feels like. You know what the work was for, and now you're starting to enjoy the benefits of all that time and energy that you spent. I think that's so.
No, absolutely. And look, with consistency and patience, like we've said throughout the entire segment here, so it does get overwhelming, and I understand that, right? We're talking a lot in a short period of time of all the different things that you can do, it can be overwhelming. And I always tell people, just simplify it, right? It's all about rhythm. Rhythm is, obviously I like to dance, so I love rhythm. But rhythm is something that's important and it needs to be repeatable. Something that you can just take over and over and over again so it doesn't feel so overwhelming. So here's a quick like nugget, if you will, of a way to just keep it simple. What I tell people is research 3 agents a week. Okay, just 3. That's it. 3 agents a week. Have 2 authentic conversations, and then have 1 value-driven follow-up. If you
The
just
three,
do
two,
that
one
every
method.
week, everything will compound. And
Love
again,
it.
back to what we said earlier, it gives you reps, right? But not too much where you feel overwhelmed. Because I feel like many people look at this big mountain and they're looking at the X millions of agents out there in the space and like, oh, how do I even start? Just start with 3. 3, 2, 1. Three agents per week that you research. Your goal is 2 authentic conversations, and then 1 value-driven follow-up is the goal. So 3, 2, 1. That should hopefully help as well to remove some of the anxiety that maybe sometimes
Yeah.
people feel when they do this.
That's a perfect transition into what we foreshadowed in the beginning was some action items and some takeaways for folks. Let's dive into a 30-day action plan. This is
Yep.
something that people can walk away with today. Adjust it for your business as you see fit, but this is the framework. Samir, kick us off.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I always believe that we should be giving something when we're teaching something to you all, we have to give you something of value, right? Again, back to the value add. I'm giving you something of value that I believe works, and I've seen it work day in, day out, but you have to be consistent and patient with this plan. Week 1, identify your top 3 agents, like we spoke about. Just pick those 3, research them, understand who they are personally and professionally. Week 2, initiate contact with personalized value-driven messaging. All of the things that we talked about, don't start what people do normally. Be different because they're used to being hit up by loan officers every day with the same pitch. Week 3, provide a tangible resource or solution. It could be a tool that you discovered. It could be some market insights. It could be some social media content that you're sending their way that maybe they can use to get clients to work with them. Week 4, follow up and stay consistent. Even if you haven't received a response yet,
Big
you'll
one.
be shocked at how many times agents, like we talked about, are busy, especially if they're producing. They might not get it on the first, second, third try. They might not realize what you're sending, but if you're consistent, they're going to start to take notice of you. So identify your top 3 agents, initiate value-driven messaging, provide a tangible resource or solution, and week 4, follow up, stay consistent, even if you haven't received a response yet.
Yeah, I just want to, again, please don't quit. Like 30 days in, if you haven't gotten the massive W that you were hoping for, it's coming, right? You may need to make small tweaks to the things that you're doing, or potentially it's perfect and you just haven't quite seen it yet. But I got to tell you, I think there's going to be a lot of people that get to 2, 3 weeks in, maybe 30 days in, and don't really feel like they've gotten the benefit they were hoping for relative to the amount of time spent. I encourage you, patience, consistency. It will work. It just may take some time. That's a big one.
Yep.
Cool. All right, let's review. So we're getting ready to wrap up here. We've talked about a lot of great stuff, and I think it's important for us to give a high level overview of the things that we've discussed today. Maybe a couple of closing words, and then we'll wrap this thing up together. So as a review, number 1, successful partners transform transactional relationships into strategic partnerships by understanding needs. That's a lot of words, but the point is, it's relationship driven, it's authentically driven. Be you, understand who you want to help, understand what they need from you, and deliver. Consistently deliver, right? The follow through is more important than the follow up. Number 2 is build agent trust through consistent value-driven communication and systems, right? So you've done the work up front, you've gotten to where you need to be. Now, in the middle of that thing, build those systems so that you can drive that consistent value over and over and over again. And it becomes part of who you are and what you do. And some of the time concerns about, hey, I don't have the bandwidth for this, start to be eased by the fact that this is what you do. It just becomes part of your routine and it becomes easier over time. And finally, last but not least, number three is that partnership growth is a patient, long-term process focused on depth over immediate sales. We just talked about it. Immediate success is great. Sometimes you're going to get one right off the top. Sometimes it's not going to, be for a little while before you get one. But the consistency and the patience, getting tired of saying it, but not really. I love it. That
Yeah,
is the
same here.
underlying theme of everything that we've talked about today. So it's really very, very important that that stays top of mind. And it's easy to say. Believe me, I think Samir will agree. I understand it's easy to say that out loud. It's harder to do. But I think that if you really can commit to it, that's what's going to ultimately drive success. That's why we're here today.
Absolutely. And look, I'll close out with saying it's overwhelming. It's going to feel overwhelming, but it's all about developing a routine and strategy to understand what your goals are. And look, maybe you have something on your wall where you have certain goals and aspirations. Put that on your wall. Let that be your inspiration and a reminder for you of why you're doing what you do. But like anything that we do, if we want long-term consistency and not a quick hit, it's going to take time. It's going to take patience. It's going to take laying down these foundations that we discussed here today. And Marshall and I, like many others, have been in this game for a long, long time. We've gotten our teeth kicked in. We know what not to do now. We know what areas of opportunity we can have that maybe others aren't leveraging. Lean on us to really help you grow your business, not even just on this session, but even if you want to reach out to us, you can find me. I'm all over social media. Reach out anytime you want. We're here to help.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. So listen, this has been a great session. Thank you, Samir, by the way. A
I appreciate
heartfelt
it. Thanks for having me.
appreciation for you spending time. Your knowledge of this business is plentiful, and for you to have, the willingness to share it with us is really, really amazing. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to do a
Anytime.
we do this every couple of weeks, folks. I hope this was valuable for you. I believe that it should be, and this is going to be, not the last, right? We're going to continue to roll these things out every couple of weeks. We've got more and more Power Pack sessions. So join us on November 6th, which is 2 weeks from today. We'll be talking about non-agency and non-QM products. So a hot topic in the industry. And as was the case with this one today, we're going to try to bring you relevant content, things that mean something to you today that can really help the business. So that's what we'll be talking about in a couple of weeks. I know we've got a good number of folks already signed up. So the same place you came to register for this session, please go ahead and lock in your spot for November 6th. It'll be a great time. And that's it. Again, thank you, Samir. Really appreciate the time. Looking
Thank
forward
you guys.
to the next one. And thanks everybody for joining us today. Hope it was helpful.
Yep. Thanks, guys.